So, all right, just started recording so that everybody knows that we're recording the webinar and it'll be posted to the website. But again, my name is Ashley Long. I'm the director of the Birth to Third Grade Continuity Project, and we are pleased to be hosting this webinar in collaboration with several different Illinois home visiting partners across the state. The Birth to Third Grade, just a tiny quick overview here. The Birth to Third Grade Continuity Project is a partnership between the Center for the Study of Education Policy, the Illinois State Board of Education, and the Governor's Office of Early Childhood Development, focused on serving communities across the state, serving families from birth through third grade, with a particular focus initially on preschool expansion communities in the state, just really understanding that it's really important for families to have continuity in the way that they receive services and for children's long-term benefits all the way from birth through third grade. So today we have brought together a large group of speakers, which I'm really excited about. Having worked with preschool communities across the state, I think there's a lot of connections between home visiting programs that sometimes preschool providers aren't aware of, or even up into early childhood elementary grades. And so today we hope to provide a little bit of an overview of what the state home visiting funding structures are and what that means, introduce some of the different home visiting models and evidence of positive outcomes from those models, as well as identify required or suggested activities for program transitions at age 3 into preschool services. And then lastly, we hope to provide some examples for best practices of transitioning 0 to 3-year-olds into preschool services. So I'm going to start by handing this over to Leslie Schwartz, who's going to give us some general overview of home visiting.
Great, thank you. Hello, I am Leslie Schwartz. I'm the project director for the Maternal, Infant, and Early Childhood Home Visiting Program that's run out of the Governor's Office of
I thought I did. I don't know what I did.
Leslie, are you still there?
It looks like she's muted.
Oh, sorry, you must have muted everybody else. Let me know if you're going to mute everybody else.
Oh, I'm so sorry. No, you're right. I was trying to hand it over to you, and it didn't want to go. Okay. I apologize. Let's start again. Okay. I will, and you're good.
Okay. I don't know where I left off, though. Where did I get cut off?
Let's see here.
Okay. I know where to start. Okay. So home visiting uses trained professionals to provide evidence-based parent support and coaching during pregnancy and through the early years of life. So we're dealing with families 0 to 3 or 0 to 5, depending on the models. Home visitors can help parents watch for developmental milestones, facilitate activities that increase parent-child attachment, and help families connect with community services. Time and time again, research has shown that home visiting has a positive effect on parenting, it reduces child maltreatment, and increases kindergarten readiness. We all know that babies do not come with instruction manuals. The prenatal and first years of life are critical time for brain development, and home visitors, in partnership with parents, can help lay the foundation for future success. In Illinois, these are the 4 most common models used. That's Parents as Teachers, Early Head Start, Baby Talk, and Healthy Families. You will have the opportunity to hear actually from all of these models today, which is great. You can go to the next slide, Ashley. As I mentioned, Illinois has a long history of investing in home visiting and currently invests approximately $50 million and supports a network of over 300 programs. And we serve over 17,000 families per year. We have one of the largest and most robust systems in all of the nation. There are 5 major funders of home visiting in Illinois, and you will be hearing from all of them today. So the 5 major funders include the Maternal, Infant, and Early Childhood Home Visiting Program, which is my program, administered out of the Governor's Office. The Illinois Department of Human Services, they provide Healthy Families. Illinois State Board of Education, their Prevention Initiative Program. The City of Chicago, and Early Head Start. To give you just a brief overview of MIECHV, MIECHV is a federal grant. It's administered out of the governor's office. It currently funds 24 home visiting programs in 13 communities, and we also fund home visiting coordinated intake, which I'll familiarize you with as well, in 10 communities. We serve between 600 and 900 children per year, and we use parents as teachers, healthy families, and early Head Start. On the next slide is our home visiting coordinated intake system. So I provided Ashley with a handout, and I'll make sure that she gets it to everybody that has specific contact information. But home visiting coordinated intake is an effort that MIECHV has invested in since we started back in 2010. And coordinated intake is a collaborative process that provides families with a single point of entry for home visiting programs within a neighborhood, community, city, town, or county. And this list and the corresponding handout that has the contact information is just inclusive of our MIECHV funded coordinated intake, but we know that other coordinated intake entities are popping up throughout the state. I know, like in Oak Park and Evanston. So this is not an all-inclusive list. This is just our MIECHV home visitors. All home visiting funders across the state, regardless of funder and model, support coordinated intake and encourage the expansion of it as a model to keep home visiting slots filled and to serve the community. So this next slide here just gives you a little bit of an overview of what happens when a referral to home visiting is made through coordinated intake. The communities listed on the previous slide, if you contact coordinated intake, a trained worker will serve as a hub for home visiting, and they'll assess family needs, refer them to an appropriate home visiting program, and then track what happens to that referral. So once a referral is made, they provide follow-up to ensure that the referrals are successful, and they'll also reach back to the original referral source to report back what happened to that referral, whether it ended up in services or not. So if you are not lucky enough to live in one of those 10 communities that has a home visiting coordinated intake, we do have a full list of all the programs, home visiting programs in the entire state of Illinois on our website, igrowillinois.org. And on that website, you can type in your address and it'll list home visiting programs that are close to you. And Ashley, yeah, that was the list of our coordinated intake. So on iGrow, you can find a program that's closest to you and reach out to them directly. If you're still having problems making connections, just contact our office directly and we can help you make a connection. And at this point, I'm going to pass it on to my colleague, Penny Smith, to discuss the Prevention Initiative Program through the State Board of Education.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm Penny with Illinois State Board of Education, as Leslie said, and I'm going to talk about the Prevention Initiative Program. It was established in 1988, and it is state-funded and authorized by Sections 1C-2 and 2-3.89 of the School Code. It is one of 2 programs funded under the Early Childhood Block Grant. Prevention Initiative provides for voluntary, continuous, intensive, evidence-based, comprehensive child development and family support services for expecting parents and families with children from birth to age 3 years. The evidence-based program models that are funded under this grant opportunity are Baby Talk, Early Head Start, Healthy Families Illinois, Nurse Family Partnership, and Parents as Teachers. In FY17, Prevention Initiative funded services to children and families statewide, including Chicago Public Schools, to approximately 11,414 children and 11,632 primary caregivers, and completed over 112,000 home visits through 146 different school districts and community providers. Eligibility. Each program develops its own eligibility form. The weighted criteria form is completed with information obtained from a parent interview and gleaned from a child's developmental screening. Programs serve children and families most in need in the community as determined by those having the most points on a weighted eligibility form. The highest priorities in the state of Illinois are children and families experiencing homelessness, youth in care or children that are involved in the child welfare system, children that are experiencing deep poverty, and children enrolled in early intervention or those who have been identified by early intervention as having measurable developmental delays, but were ineligible for early intervention services. Programs need to utilize the weighted eligibility form for enrolling families as identified as having the most points, or ensuring families with the most points are enrolled and prioritized on a waiting list. Programs are encouraged to coordinate and collaborate with other service providers in the same area to make sure children and their families are receiving appropriate early childhood services as determined by the needs of the family, including those transitioning from birth to 3 programs to 3 to 5 programs. Chicago Public Schools, the children and families living within the Chicago city limits will access programs funded under the Chicago Public Schools grant, administered by the Department of Family Support Services. They operate both Prevention Initiative and Early Head Start programs. And now I'm going to share a little bit of information from the Illinois Department of Human Services. Okay. The Illinois Department of Human Services funds Healthy Families Illinois programs, and these are voluntary programs for home visitation that works with expectant and new parents who are at risk for problems in parenting, including child abuse or neglect. Healthy Families Illinois follows the research-based Healthy Families America program model. It is a voluntary home visiting program that helps new and expectant parents strengthen their families' functioning and reduce their risk for child abuse and neglect. The program is a prevention program that works to improve the safety of children while providing support to the family. And now I will pass it on to my colleagues that will be talking about the next subject, which is Donna Edmonds with Early Head Start. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I hope you can hear me.
We can hear you.
Okay, I always need confirmation of that. Good afternoon, everyone that's on the webinar. I'm Donna Emmons. I'm with the Illinois Head Start Association. I'm the Associate Head Start State Collaboration Director. I want to tell you a little bit about Head Start, Early Head Start, and how it's funded in Illinois, and a little bit about the model. Early Head Start is an evidence-based model for prenatal to age 3. Early Head Start programs provide intensive, comprehensive child development and family support services. The mission is to promote healthy prenatal outcomes for pregnant women, to enhance the development of very young children, and to promote healthy family functioning. Funding. Early Head Start programs are funded federal to local. That means the funds do not go through any of the state agencies in Illinois. So if you're a program, your funding comes directly from Washington through the regional office, which is located in Chicago for us. For fiscal year 18, the year that we're in now, Illinois will receive $98 million plus for program operations, and programs will receive over $2 million for training and technical assistance. Now, each program doesn't receive that amount, but over the whole state of Illinois, that's the amount of funding that comes into the state. Currently, for fiscal year 18, there are 8,082 Early Head Start slots in Illinois, and that includes both the home-based slots and the center-based slots. Totaling 43 Early Head Start grantees. Now, some of the grantees are Early Head Start standalone programs, and some of them are combined with a Head Start program. Eligibility is a little bit different than what you heard from Penny about DHS and about a prevention initiative through the State Board of Education. In Early Head Start, it's based basically on age and income. Pregnant women, infants, and toddlers who are 100% or below the federal poverty level. And as an example, for a family of 4, the federal poverty level is $25,100 a year or less. Families experiencing homelessness or children in foster care are automatically eligible. A family is also eligible if they qualify for TANF child-only payments. But that's not the only way for eligibility. Programs must have weighted selection criteria also, as Penny was describing for prevention initiative. That includes the above factors, but also other community risk factors in order to prioritize enrollment. It's not first come, first serve. Families have a weighted selection of what's going on in their lives and what those community risk factors are. Early Head Start programs are governed primarily by the federal Head Start program performance standards and the Head Start Act. And if you're interested in reading all these performance standards, you can click on the link and check that out for yourself. Early Head Start takes a comprehensive approach to meeting the needs of the whole child and family. It's a 2-generation approach. It supports stability and long-term success for families who are most at risk. Education, health, nutrition, family engagement, disability services, and mental health are just some of the supports for children and families that are provided. So what does home visiting look like in Early Head Start? Well, the home-based option delivers that full range of services that I just talked about, consistent with the performance standards. The visits are with the child's parents, primarily in the child's home, and through group socialization opportunities in a classroom setting, a community facility, or on field trips. A caseload is 10 to 12 families per home visitor, with a maximum of 12 families for any individual home visitor. And as I said before, home visits are made with the parents. They have to be made with the parents, not a babysitter or a temporary caregiver. There's 1 home visit per week per family that must last at least an hour and a half, maybe longer if there's more than 1 child. And home visitors have to provide a minimum of 46 visits a year. They also have to provide at a minimum 22 group socializations activities a year. And if any of those are canceled by the program, they have to make up the home visits and socializations. Now, and they have to try to attempt to make up the ones canceled by parents. So we try to assure that families get 46 home visits and 22 group socializations a year. The curriculum is a developmentally appropriate, research-based, early childhood, home-based curriculum. You cannot use like creative curriculum for a classroom for home visiting unless it's a home-based curriculum. It must promote the parent's role as the child's teacher. It must align with the Head Start Early Learning Outcomes Framework, ages birth to 5, or as we call it in Head Start, the ELOF. It also has to align with state early learning standards and have an organized developmental scope and sequence. And of course, programs have to support their staff as they implement the curriculum and to monitor curriculum fidelity. The ELOF, the Head Start Early Learning Framework, presents 5 broad areas of early learning, and those are referred to as central domains, and they're listed there, and they're very familiar to you in the world of birth to 3: approaches to learning, social and emotional development, language and literacy, cognition, and perceptual, motor, and physical development. This is a continuum of learning for infants, toddlers, and preschoolers, and it's grounded in comprehensive research around what young children should know and be able to do in their early years. Early Head Start also provides services to pregnant women. Home visitors assist with an ongoing source of health care and health insurance for pregnant women. They make referrals that at a minimum have to include nutritional counseling, food assistance, oral health care, mental health services, substance abuse prevention, and emergency shelter if that's needed. Home visitors also provide a newborn visit with each mother and baby within 2 weeks after the infant's birth, and also prenatal and postpartum information. Home visitors also address a family's needs for appropriate supports for emotional well-being, nurturing, responsive caregiving, and father engagement. They also engage the pregnant woman and her family members, such as fathers in family partnership services. They also discuss program options and plan for the infant's transition to the program enrollment. You know, it is a transition for families when that baby's born, And with pregnancy, I guess, is the first transition, and then the baby's born, that's a transition, and then we transition the child into the early Head Start program. And usually in the home visiting program, the child takes the pregnant woman's slot in the home visitor's caseload. So Early Head Start has required transitioning services. The program performance standards that I mentioned before have a section on transition that all grantees must follow. And they're trying to ensure that there are, the practices are very appropriate for transitions from Early Head Start to Head Start to kindergarten, and even between programs, that everything's in compliance. The standards call for family and community collaboration as a big part of transitioning. So I've copied a little bit out of the transition section in the performance standards on the slide here. They have an Early Head Start program must implement these strategies. Of course, there's timing for transition out of Early Head Start at least 6 months prior to each child's 3rd birthday. You have to take into account the child's developmental level and health and disability status, the progress that the child made while they were in Early Head Start, any family circumstances, and the availability of Head Start or other public pre-K programs. And also you're going to want to transition the child into Head Start or another program as soon as possible after the child's 3rd birthday. But Early Head Start permits the child to remain in the program for a limited number of months until there's an appropriate placement. Also, the program must collaborate with parents through all of this, and at a minimum, provide that information about the child's progress and provide strategies for parents. Early Head Start and Head Start need to collaborate on this, because we do like to have an entire birth to 5 program and have the child transition into Head Start if the family wants that. And then there are additional transition services for children with IFSPs that need to be followed. So we all know we need to support families and children in transition. It can be a time of great excitement and joy, or it can be a time of uncertainty and concerns for parents and children. But for transition at any age, parents and children often have very different responses to that same transition. Families' expectations can vary. Maybe they have past experiences that weren't too good with transitions, and that could affect the current one with their child. And the transitions impact everyone. Families' transition experiences may be influenced by their culture, their language, their background. And of course, the age and development of the child and the settings could create new demands on the child and family. There's just a lot to consider. Communication and collaboration are so important between the families and the professionals. Connect on a personal level, create occasions for families to discuss their children's transitions with each other, visit classrooms, meet new teachers, create a memory book, go on an adventure to the new classroom, choose a buddy, or ask older children to share their stories. Just some ideas that might happen that might be helpful. Continuity is important. It's achieved when professionals at both the sending and the receiving setting work together to create alignment, plan in advance, plan with families, and let families invite families to stay in the new setting until they feel comfortable leaving. And of course, again, families need to be engaged in all of the planning and the decision making, lots of discussions, and be responsive to concerns. Ongoing learning about the best way to support children and families is an important part of an early childhood settings transition process. So you should be assessing your settings' current transition practices. Are we doing the best that we can do for families and children? And I wanted to give you a really great tip here. On the National Head Start website, it's called the Early Childhood Learning and Knowledge Center, or ECLIC, and the link is there. There are 4 supporting transition resource guides, and they are really good. Using child development as a guide, early educators partnering with families, program policies and practices, and working with education partners. And there's a link right to the guides here. I would suggest checking those out. They just have excellent material in them. So if you have any questions or needing more information about Early Head Start, please don't hesitate to contact me or Lori Morrison-Frichtel, who's the Executive Director of the Illinois Head Start Association. And now I'm going to pass it on to Barb Turhall, with, who will talk to you about parents as teachers.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Barb Turhall, like Donna said, and I'm a training manager at the Allergy Prevention Fund. And I am also the Parents as Teachers Illinois State Leader and a PAT National Trainer. And I'm going to give you a brief model overview of Parents as Teachers today. So thank you for taking time to become more familiar with Parents as Teachers, which is also known and referred to as PAT. So I'll use those terms interchangeably as I give you a brief overview here. So my hope is that following this brief presentation, that you'll have an understanding of the goals and the approach of Parents as Teachers model, the family and community outcomes associated with PAT, and an understanding of how the model is implemented, especially here in Illinois. Parents as Teachers promotes the optimal early development, learning, and health of young children by supporting and engaging their parents and caregivers. PAT is an evidence-based, research-informed home visiting model. In 1981, Missouri pioneered the concept of helping parents embrace their important role as their child's first and best teacher. Today, Parents as Teachers continues to equip early childhood organizations and professionals with information and tools that are relevant and wildly applicable to today's parents, families, and children. The concept for Parents as Teachers was developed in the 1970s when Missouri educators noted that children were beginning kindergarten with varying levels of school readiness. Research showed that a greater parent involvement is a critical link in the child's development and learning skills, including reading and writing. Early childhood professionals suggested that a program to provide early detection of developmental delays and health issues and parent education to help parents understand their role in encouraging their child's development from the beginning could really help and improve school readiness and parent involvement. Grounded in the latest research, Parents as Teachers develops curricula that support a parent's role in promoting school readiness and healthy development of children. Parents as Teachers is actually in all 50 states, and we have a footprint that's well established around the world. We're in all 50 states and in six countries. And there's a picture there so you can see where we're at. Parents as Teachers has 4 primary goals: to increase parent knowledge of early childhood development and improve parenting practices, to provide early detection of developmental delays and health issues, to prevent child abuse and neglect, and to increase children's school readiness and success. What we know is that by utilizing evidence-based practice in home visiting, we will increase parents' level of engagement, we will promote parenting that fosters children's development, will motivate a commitment to parental growth and behavior change, and will improve parents' abilities to discover their connection to their child's behavior and their family's well-being. PAT is a bit unique in that it incorporates both a home visiting model and a curriculum. PAT's evidence-informed and research-based curriculum was developed to equip parent educators with information to identify and build on family strengths, capabilities, and skills, and to foster family protective factors. It features family-friendly activities and resources that engage parents in their children's learning and development and inform their decisions around everything from nutrition to discipline to health. All of the materials for parents are available in English and Spanish, and there are some materials that are available in many other languages. PAT programs must provide all 4 model components. So personal visits, group connections, screenings that include health, hearing, vision, and development, and a resource network. Together, these 4 components form a cohesive package of services that support the PAT 4 primary goals that we discussed earlier. PAT refers to home visits as personal visits because personal visits can happen anywhere. And while visits in the home are encouraged to build on the primary learning environment of the child, PAT recognizes that extenuating circumstances sometimes exist where visits in the home are not possible. The 3 roles of the parent educator embrace the PAT approach of partnering, facilitating, and reflecting to build a strong relationship with the family. PAT offers very flexible qualification criteria, so depending on their program design, affiliates can serve families from children from pregnancy through kindergarten. Some affiliates target services to a specific community or geographic location, And affiliates in Illinois normally have specific eligibility criteria for the families who receive services, which is normally determined by their funder and community needs. While PAT programs in Illinois determine their own eligibility criteria based on funder and community needs, the PAT model is a universal access model that allows programs to serve any and all families based on their own eligibility criteria. While other models may have more specific or limited enrollment criteria, the PAT model is very flexible and allows the program and funder to decide how to qualify families for enrollment based on at-risk criteria they determine and/or at-risk criteria present in their community. The Parents as Teachers model is designed to be used in any community and with any family during the crucial early years of their children's lives. Parents as Teachers affiliates are housed in school districts, family resource centers, hospitals, housing authorities, health clinics, and many other types of organizations. More than a dozen outcome studies have been conducted on the effects of the Parents as Teachers model. Evaluations have been supported by various states, school districts, private foundations, universities, and research organizations. With each new evaluation, we continue to learn about the children and families served by Parents as Teachers and the long-term impacts on communities. Evaluation results show children's developmental delays and health problems are detected early. Children enter kindergarten ready to learn and the achievement gap is narrowed. Children achieve school success into the elementary grades. Parents improve their parenting knowledge and skills. Parents are more involved in their children's schooling, and families are more likely to promote children's language and literacy. We're really excited to announce that we just had a new research study that was just published in the May 2018 Child Abuse and Neglect, the International Journal, that shows that large-scale implementation of the PAT evidence-based home visiting model results in a significant decrease in cases of child maltreatment. This new research includes nearly 8,000 families, and researchers found a 22% reduction of child abuse, so that's pretty exciting. Families enrolled in Parents as Teachers experience the following short-term outcomes: an increase in healthy pregnancies and improved birth outcomes, an increase in parents' knowledge of their child's emerging development and age-appropriate child development, improved parenting capacity, parenting practices and parent-child relationships, early detection of developmental delays and health issues, and improved family health and functioning. Intermediate outcomes for families include improved child health and development, prevention of child abuse and neglect, based on our, again, kind of substantiated again by that recent study, increased school readiness, and increased parent involvement in children's care and education, resulting in the ultimate long-term outcome of strong communities, thriving families, and children who are healthy, safe, and ready to learn. In the 3-day foundational training, parent educators and other family support professionals learn to use the foundational curriculum effectively as they work with families to partner, facilitate, and reflect. Both the training and curriculum cover children's growth and development from before birth through age 3. The model implementation 2-day training builds on the foundational training and is designed for parent educators and supervisors whose programs meet the requirements for PAT affiliation. The evidence-based Parents as Teachers home visiting model is designed to be flexible for implementation in any and every community. There are 20 essential requirements that PAT has determined are essential to the model and required in order to provide high-quality, evidence-based services to families. Parents as Teachers affiliates are required to maintain their certification and adhere to the 20 essential requirements of the model in order to ensure the high quality of the services they provide to children and families. Additionally, affiliates take part in the quality endorsement and improvement process once every 5 years as part of their continuous quality improvement efforts. So PAT has some guidance on transitions. A family's exit from the program should be a planned process that recognizes the family's accomplishments, helps ensure they are able to maintain their connections to community resources, and identifies any additional resources and support that may be beneficial for the family once they are no longer enrolled. A transition plan should be developed with the family prior to service completion. Parent educators should develop the transition plan with the family as their exit date approaches and complete it prior to the family's exit date. Transitions with PAT programs within school districts and within community agencies in Illinois look a bit different. I'm going to give you some examples. One example from a school district, they've taken a new approach really within the last year, and their Parents as Teachers program, Prevention Initiative, PI, we call it, supervisor, is now the Family Services Coordinator over both the PAT-PI program and the pre-K. And they transition the PAT families, PI families, to their 3 to 5 parent educators as they move into the school pre-K. So they're using parents as teachers for both birth to 3 and 3 to 5. Those 3 to 5 parent educators continue home visits based on the family's need and the family's request for additional support. This makes for a really smooth transition into the school system and continues to endorse the importance of parent involvement in the child's education. Another school district has a transition process similar to early intervention, and they transition children to pre-K on their 3rd birthday. They have a parent visit and a parent tour, orientation for the parent upon enrollment. They transition the children and the families to the pre-K parent coordinator and have the child visit the classroom. The PI-PAT children receive automatic enrollment into pre-K, and that transition process starts about 6 months prior to the child's 3rd birthday. Some community-based organizations handle things a little bit differently. They have staff and parents create a transition plan and checklist to support the transition either into Head Start, pre-K, family child care. They have many options. That also starts about 6 months prior to the child turning 3. Their goal, they like to host a transition fair for all the 3 to 5 agencies that the children might transition into. They set up tables, they provide information to parents so parents can make an informed choice. They also do kind of a soft handoff, and they set shared goals between the new 3 to 5 site, the parents, and the PAT program. And then they are working towards having parents who have transitioned to come back and then present to the parents in the program about their experience. So many different ways to transition parents as teachers' families into a 3 to 5 system. And those are just some examples that seem to be working well. So included here are some links to some additional materials that you might find helpful. It's the Parents as Teachers National website, as well as our PAT Illinois State Office website. I have some additional PAT information for you. And then here is some contact information. So I'd like to invite you to reach out to me or my colleagues here at the OUNCE with any questions you may have. It is our goal to support and strengthen Parents as Teachers programs in Illinois through training and technical assistance at the OUNCE of Prevention. So next up is Ellen Walsh with Baby Talk, and I thank you.
Thank you, Barb. This is Ellen Walsh. I'll wait till I see my slide, I think. Here to talk to you about, I'm the Learning Institute Director for Baby Talk, and I'm here to talk to you about our model. To begin, the Baby Talk model began serving families over 30 years ago, and the model's name includes the acronym TALK, which is not always well known out in the field, but this stands for Teaching Activities for Learning and Knowledge. So when we think about the model, whether it is through our newborn encounters, home visiting, center-based programming, or some other community-based programming model, Baby Talk is a model for building a trustworthy system in which families are identified and appropriate services are delivered through both personal and group experiences, as well as collaborative referrals. And when we talk about our trustworthy system, we're thinking about the relationships between professionals and parents, relationships among professionals, and relationships with the collaborators to ultimately support parent-child relationships. The mission of Baby Talk is to positively impact child development and nurture healthy parent-child relationships during the early critical years. Next slide. Okay. So since its inception in 1986, Baby Talk has trained professionals in the use of our model, approach, and curriculum within 31 states and within Canada. When we look at our collaborators within the state of Illinois, the model is currently implemented within 120 programs across funding streams. With the increased focus on early childhood, we don't want to see more money being spent in communities without necessarily having a greater impact. So we believe that where silos exist, families may fall between the cracks. So Baby Talk, what makes Baby Talk unique is that it exists as a community system rather than a silo. Or if you're living in the city, we can think about skyscrapers. The model has a focus on identifying the community by systemizing an outreach mechanism in which all families are reached. Though we want to find all families, we do spend the most money and resources on targeting and supporting families who are most vulnerable or most at risk. Our model program in Decatur uses hospitals, clinics, and other locations, and we have supported other programs in the state in their efforts to systemize outreach as well. Ultimately, the model supports professionals with a passion and flexibility to provide support for all families being served. The Baby Talk model is articulated within the first 4 bullets on this slide. So when we talk about building a system, this means identifying others that are interested in serving young families in the community, learning about their goals and services, discovering opportunities to assist each other in meeting goals for families. This means establishing a system of communication for ongoing support of families. When we think about screening every family, we think about casting a wide net over our targeted population in order to identify who is raising children within our community. This includes using the Baby Talk Encounter Protocol to learn about the family's risk factors. This may include outreach to hospitals, again, WIC, clinics, or other community locations where families may be found. Then we use the screening to identify which families are most at risk, which ones are already being case managed by other agencies, and which ones have needs which can be addressed either through the program's resources or other community resources. And this includes making referrals or connections immediately to establish trust with parents. The screenings that we specifically use, the model supports the use of all funder-driven screenings for eligibility, and so our programs align to our funders' screenings for eligibility. And finally, when we deliver appropriate services, families most at risk may enter a system of case management with purposeful, frequent personal encounters or home visits. And in order to support all of this, the model has clearly articulated age-based protocols and research-based curriculum developmentally appropriate to support both reflection with parents on their child's development, as well as to facilitate parent-child interaction. So Baby Talk offers over 370 pieces of curricula designed to promote parent-child interactions and to engage families in their child's learning across domains. And additionally, over 270 pieces support engagement and reflection on child development with parents. While our curriculum is an important component, we do not believe it is worth much for families if we don't have the right approach, really thinking about how we are with families. So core to the model are Baby Talk's critical concepts, and I'll talk about just a few of these, or 3 of these. So when we use the phrase, "tell me about your baby," this is our way of recognizing the parent as the expert of their child. We're inviting parents to help us learn what they know about their child, and not letting the agenda be driven by our own preconceptions or our own ideas of what we think they need. By asking this question, we are putting the parent in the expert role. When we think about going where families are, we think about this both physically and emotionally. So as we think about outreach and recruitment, where are families in the community, and how do we find those that are most at risk to have meaningful engagement that may lead to enrollment? If we think about our direct ongoing engagement with families and going where families are, what does it mean to go where the family is as they have emotions and reactions regarding their child and their child's development? Finally, coming alongside families is so very important, as we know each family is in a different place. Each family has their own family culture. Each family has their own strengths, and each family has their own challenges. We do not want to push or pull families where we want them to go. Instead, we must engage and work collaboratively with them from where they are. So here are some of our key methods and approaches. So we think about our work as nurturing families in support of optimal early childhood development. We apply a developmental approach to family engagement. We employ strategies to facilitate parent-child interaction. And our nurturing of families includes affirming parental competence. Any effort, how big or how small that we see, we want to call that out and we want to support that parental mastery that's happening in front of us. Our approach includes active listening, reflection, and strength-based strategies. And finally, again, building community connections. So some distinctive features, we believe in our approach that we have a proven history of identifying families with the greatest risk factors. We provide an approach for professionals to identify at-risk families early and to implement supportive services. We employ extensive protocols to guide effective encounters with families, and we provide flexibility to tailor protocols and curriculum based on the needs of families. And next, talk about a little bit about our research. I have a high-level overview, but what I can tell you in more detail is we've conducted a number of research studies, including 3 randomized control trials, including over 750 participants, parents and children, as well as 7 descriptive studies. The families included in our studies are ethnically diverse, low income, trauma exposed, many English language learners, and often with low education levels. The main positive impact areas that we've been able to do our research on include social emotional development, language development, and parenting practices. These first 3, we've shown statistical significance. However, we've also seen positive impact areas around parental stress and family well-being. I want to mention that through these multiple RCTs and through our work and our research specifically at Refugee 1, working with immigrants and refugees, we have demonstrated that our approach is culturally sensitive, and we train and support professionals as they work with ever-changing diversity in the families we support. We know core to the practical application in any environment is understanding that the families we serve over time, that the families we serve change over time and become more diverse. Cultural humility and recognizing our own lens is critical as we think about building strong partnerships with families in order to reach these outcomes. So to think about transition planning, similar to the other, to funders and models, we think about transitioning 6 months prior to the child's 3rd birthday. We also think that transitions may occur really at any time, and Donna spoke about this as well, at any time during the birth of 3 or birth of 3rd grade continuum. We may have a number of transitions to facilitate. So they may include transitions to new service providers, to new service delivery options, to new living arrangements, and certainly to early childhood classrooms. So the model includes beginning this process, and we have documentation we look for that includes supportive discussions with parents regarding future services, discussion and reflection with parents to help the child adjust to the new setting. So what are some strategies, what are some supports that we can think of together that will help the child adjust? And I love, Donna, the list that you had. With the family's consent, we will transmit information, or programs will transmit information about the child to the early childhood classroom. And we have this collaboration through a conference held 90 days before the child's 3rd birthday or their date of eligibility for the pre-K or Head Start program. So in our quality confirmation process, we look for evidence of this in the documentation in case files for families. So within school districts, children are identified and screened by pre-K programming. In our community programming, professionals maintain connections with districts for screening, some with MOUs and communication around the needs and availability for transition to pre-K, even after fall enrollment. We do know at least one program that has used community-based funding to provide group socializations for 3 to 5-year-olds that have been transitioned in order to provide support and continuity. When we were asked for examples of programs and communities with cohesive systems, I checked in with several programs, and they all really do have strong connections between their birth to 3, whether it's Head Start or pre-K programming within their communities. Those connections are in place, and they're able to support smooth transitions. when I was reflecting with professionals a little bit more, some of the challenges that we talked about are though that at times, although the child has turned 3 and is eligible and there is a place in pre-K, sometimes the family feels the child is not ready. We also know that priority is given to children with birthdays before the cutoff date. And so often there may not be slots for children turning 3 after September. And when there are openings for children who turn 3 after the cutoff date, if their birthday falls in March, April, May, you know, that's not really a great opportunity. It's a little too late to integrate into the current 3 to 5 programming year. So these are some things that programs are needing to consider as they work to support continuity of services. You know, while our birth to 3 programs continue to serve children rather than them transitioning them out in these cases, this does have an impact as we think about the needs of more families and children in the community awaiting birth to 3 programming. One final note I have is that in thinking about their support of families across the continuum, we have a school district-based program that was able to find gaps in overall services by contacting over 200 current pre-K families to inquire about their prior involvement in birth to 3. And this effort identified those that did not receive any services, as well as then siblings in those families that are eligible for birth to 3 services. And so as a result, this grew that community's overall family involvement in the birth to 3rd grade continuum. We think that's a real success. So I hope that this provided a succinct enough, but thorough enough overview of the model. I certainly could have talked more than perhaps the 12 minutes, but also some discussion points. You know, as we think about transitions, I look forward to further conversations among this group and in other settings. With respect to the model, if anyone would like more information, you certainly may reach me or my colleague, Karen Dennis. So thank you so much, and I will now turn the presentation over to Kit Patterson from Healthy Families.
Okay, thanks, Ellen. Sorry, it took me a second to unmute myself, but I think everyone can hear me now. My name is Kit Patterson, and I work for the Ounce of Prevention Fund in Chicago. I have a role very similar to Barb, who spoke about parents as teachers. I'm a training manager, and I also am a trainer, and I'm a certified national core trainer for Healthy Families America. And the rest of my role is supporting the Healthy Families programs in the state of Illinois through technical assistance. A little bit about Healthy Families America. Healthy Families America is a national model of home visitation services. It was launched by Prevent Child Abuse America in 1992, and they were based their 12 critical elements on more than 30 years of research. Healthy Families Illinois program started to emerge in our state in about 1994. Currently in Illinois, Healthy Families programs can get funding through the Department of Human Services, as we heard, through the Illinois State Board of Education Prevention Initiative funds, through MIECHV, through the Ounce of Prevention Fund, and programs also receive private funding. Nationally, there are more than 580 programs in the United States and Canada and in the U.S. territories. The goals of the model are going to sound very familiar now that we're on our 4th home visiting model. This is going to sound pretty familiar. The mission of Healthy Families is to promote child well-being and prevent the abuse and neglect of our nation's children through home visiting. The first goal of the program is to build and sustain community partnerships to be able to engage overburdened families in home visiting. It speaks to, this goal emerges from Healthy Families' focus on enrolling families during the prenatal period or within 2 weeks of birth. It's really challenging in some communities to identify families during this period, and so there's a goal and a requirement that programs establish community partnerships and referral relationships so that they will have access to referrals to these overburdened families during their pregnancy. Coordinated intake communities do a great job of helping Healthy Families programs meet this goal. Another goal of the program is to cultivate and strengthen nurturing parent-child relationships. This goal echoes the Healthy Families philosophy around relationship-based work and the importance of the parent-child relationship, particularly in families at risk. The next goal is to promote healthy childhood growth and development. And the program also seeks to enhance family functioning by reducing risk and building protective factors. The goals are similar to the goals of the other program models, so we're going to spend just a little bit of time getting familiar with the elements of healthy families that make it unique. The second goal that we discussed just a moment ago mentions the program's intent to strengthen nurturing parent-child relationships. Over time, Healthy Families America has worked hard to ensure that this focus on the parent-child relationship distinguishes a Healthy Families home visitor from other early childhood professionals who may be focused on child development and school readiness. Healthy Families America embodies an infant mental health approach with the belief that early nurturing relationships are the foundation for lifelong healthy development. In recent years, the model has increased its focus on this approach, knowing that babies and young children thrive and develop more appropriately when they're cared for and nurtured by adults. The model has also increased their focus on working with families impacted by trauma. It's been estimated through research that 60 to 80% of families on an average Healthy Families caseload have experienced trauma. Healthy Families sites serve many families who are struggling with issues like substance abuse and intimate partnered violence. And some of these mental health challenges also that might be caused by early childhood trauma that the parent experienced, such as child abuse. There's multiple stressors in the family's lives, such as finances, housing, lack of education. In order to address these challenges, Healthy Families program staff are trained in a trauma-informed approach, forming healthy relationships with parents, applying a strength-based empowerment approach that includes being honest when parents are responding to their environment in ways that may cause harm to themselves and their children, accepting families where they are without judgment or bias, and building on parental competencies. HFA describes itself as the primary home visiting model best equipped to work with families who may have histories of trauma. And home visitors use a trauma-informed approach in their work with families and in communities in order to be more effective in their work with these populations. Healthy Families programs are able to define the population that they will serve based on the unique characteristics of their community, as many other programs are. So an example of a target population for a program might be first-time mothers living in St. Clair County, or it might be a description like pregnant women between the ages of 14 and 21 in certain zip codes. Many of the home visiting of the Healthy Families programs in Illinois serve only first-time parents. The model's eligibility framework helps parents screen the target population to identify parents at greatest risk, the families who would benefit most from home visiting services. So on your screen, you see a variety of family risk factors. As Penny described to us, many funders expect programs to prioritize families most in need based on risks. And the risk factors that programs consider vary slightly between programs, but in general, the information about families that will help the program determine if a family is eligible for services includes things like whether the parent's an adolescent, history of mental health or substance abuse, late access to prenatal care, unemployed parents or low-income families, unstable housing, social isolation, and low educational attainment. Families who are not determined eligible, who are referred to services but determined not eligible based on the screening, are offered referrals to community programs that meet their needs. In working with families who demonstrate risk factors for eligibility, it's vital that program services make an impact, that the programs are able to reduce those risks. Healthy Families America has a strong national research base, which includes randomized controlled trials. Today, research completed in more than 12 states indicates outcomes such as reduction in child maltreatment, increased use of prenatal care, and decreased preterm low-weight babies if families are enrolled prenatally, improvements in parent-child interaction and school readiness, reduction in dependency on TANF, and increased access to medical services and immunization rates. The model has 12 critical elements which help define what a Healthy Families program is. Some of the key ones that stand out for the program is, as I mentioned earlier, that services are voluntary and begin prenatally or at birth, so services begin early, and home visits are intensive. Families receive weekly home visits for at least 6 months and often longer. It's a leveling system that decreases the frequency of visits as families make progress over time. Services in Healthy Families are offered at least for 3 years, but their programs in Illinois that offer services up to 5 years, which can impact the transition period and help. It might complicate things if children are still enrolled in healthy families, but parents are interested in pre-K, so the transition might look a little different. Caseload sizes, as in all of the home visiting models, are limited in this model. Healthy Families America values cultural competence. It's a central principle to the model, and it's integrated into all aspects of program services, from engagement to home visiting to supervision to training. Home visitors, because Healthy Families was developed as a paraprofessional model, staffed by members of the community, home visitors, at a minimum, must have a high school diploma or GED, plus experience working with infants and families. Educational backgrounds of home visitors in Illinois vary widely. There's staff who have GEDs, and there's home visitors who have master's degrees and everything in between. Because of this focus on a paraprofessional model, the model requires extensive training. Research supports formal training to prepare staff to assume the responsibilities of their job, as well as ongoing training to support staff as they implement new approaches in their work. So there's a substantial number of training topics covered in the first year of work, including things like infant care and child health and safety, as well as supporting parent-child relationship, mental health, substance abuse, family, and community violence. Annual trainings are required around culture and child abuse and neglect reporting. The process, Healthy Families America has a process of accreditation to support the sites in implementing the model with fidelity. This accreditation process supports sites in engaging in continuous quality improvement, and the accreditation process is guided by the Healthy Families America best practice standards. Accreditation for Healthy Families programs happens once every 4 years. Within those best practice standards, there's a fairly recent new standard related to transitions. It's specific to the way that programs need to support families as services come to an end. So depending on the program situation, this ending of services could be the time that a family is graduating from services as home visiting wraps up, when the child reaches age 3 or 5. But it could also be applied at times that there is a planned closure of services. There are times in home visiting when a family maybe is moving out of the service area and the program knows that in advance, and there's an expectation that the program will help through that transition as well. The standard requires that programs develop a plan, as all the other models stated, for the transition in partnership with the family. There are several specific expectations about how the plan will be developed and what the program will do with the plan. It's important that the family, the home visitor, and the supervisor are involved in the development of the plan, though they don't all have to be present at the same time. That the program allows sufficient time to conduct the plan, so they encourage 6 months, but at least 3 months prior to the transition. That the plan identifies resources or services needed or desired by the family. Preschool is not specifically mentioned in the standard or pre-K programs, but it is one of the most common resources that programs connect families with at the time of graduation. But other resources they might be connecting families with are healthcare, financial assistance, or other community-based programs for preschoolers. The program requires, or the standard requires, that the program breaks the plan down into smaller steps to support families in achieving success, and that prior to closure, the site or the family follows up with the identified resources to make sure that they're available and to help with successful case transition. The intent is that the plan is a living document, something that the home visitor and the family will refer back to and follow up on just throughout the last few months of home visiting. In practice, transition planning, this process varies from program to program and family to family based on need and what is available in their community. Since this standard is fairly new, implementation of this programs in Illinois are still developing their more consistent practices in implementing this. From my experience, before I came to the OUNCE, I was a home visitor and a supervisor at a Healthy Families program in Aurora. And some of the keys to success that we found in connecting families to preschool services came through overcoming some of the anxiety families feel around this time that both Ellen and Donna mentioned, and some of the barriers that exist to families. In the community where I worked, most of the families in our program accessed childcare through family members, through their neighbors, other informal home-based care options. And my experiences was that families who had never used a center-based childcare often had greater resistance to the idea of transitioning their 3-year-old into a pre-K program. They'd often say things like, oh, he's too little, or he's still just a baby, he's too small for school. And one of the strategies that we found to be successful in working with these families was to do a home visit at the pre-K program or the Head Start center that the family was qualified for or interested in. Often just seeing the place and noticing the energy there helped ease parents' concerns, and it was helped along by the fact that the child would be there and the child's face would light up immediately and he or she would want to join in the play. And helping parents understand what a typical preschool day is as opposed to their experiences or perceptions of what school might be like for 3-year-olds, and then allowing them to witness their own child's desire and readiness made a big difference in being able to make those connections. Another thing we would do, we'd invite staff from local programs to come to our parent group once in a while. I think it helps for parents to have a familiar face at the program and a chance to ask questions, and it really served as a bridge for a lot of families. And as always, the role of the home visitor as an advocate for the family, which is very familiar to them, helped to make connections. Having a partner at your side as you try to navigate through maybe options that might seem overwhelming or paperwork that might seem intimidating really helps to empower parents. While some programs, in my experience working with Healthy Families programs, might have informal connections to school district preschool systems or Head Start programs, I'm not aware of any such communities where there's a formal system in place. Many Healthy Families programs are connected to community collaboratives, such as the AOK network, or a local home visiting program partnership, or part of their coordinated intake. That might be a great place to start with if you are considering how to put some of these formal relationships into place. So that is Healthy Families. I am going to pass the baton along to Ashley so that we have time for some questions.
Yes, well, thank you so much, all of you, for sharing. And I realize here, also there's Kit's information, that there's been a lot of information shared. I really hope that people have taken away some strategies for connecting children 0 to 3 and their families to services, as well as transition activities, and hopefully strategies for not only supporting families, but connecting with programs within your own communities. And so this last bit, our goal is to be wrapping up about 4:15, so we've got not quite 10 minutes to do some questions that you might have. And probably the best way to do this is you should have a feature to be able to chat with us. So if you would want to put questions, or if you just note that you have a question, I can even unmute you so you can talk to us, and then we'll be able to see if one of our presenters can help answer any questions. And I think in your participant thing, if you click the more, it should give you a chat option. I've had a few technical difficulties on my end, which I'm hoping hasn't necessarily been too noticeable. So will we be able to make the presentation available? Yes. So and I will even copy the website into the chat box over here, but the slide deck, as well as a recording of today, Leslie's handout that unfortunately I thought I would be able to share through the chat, but I haven't been able to do that, will be available as well, all posted to our website. So I'll post that website here in 1 second to that chat box. And also on our website, so I can put my contact information up here. There's my email address, and I just put the Birth to Third Grade Continuity Project in there, but under previous trainings, this will get listed. You can see other previous trainings or upcoming events that the project hosts. No questions so far? Well, I hope that everyone, like I said, I hope you took away some good strategies. And as a project, we hopefully will be following up on some of these things too to help make connections within communities for connecting to home visiting services and make transitions between 0 to 3 programming up through pre-K and into kindergarten first. I will stay on for just a little bit longer if anybody else comes up with a question. All right. Have a good afternoon, everybody. Thank you.